everyone, and welcome back to My Brain is a Wonderland, the podcast for neurodivergent women and the people who love them. You're here with your host, Emily, and today is the third episode of our mini-series based around the female autistic traits that are outlined in the book Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price. I want to again preface this episode with telling everyone that I have not read this book, but I have seen really good reviews of it online. And the list of female autistic traits I actually found not in the book, but on a subreddit on Reddit. So I saw this being kind of shared around, and it listed, I don't know how many traits, but they're divided into 4 separate headers, subjects, areas, I guess. And the first episode, I did the emotional traits. Second episode, I did psychological. And for this third episode, I'm going to do the behavioral traits. And just to give a recap of what this is all about, is basically the doctor who wrote the book, Unmasking Autism, and I believe they are autistic as well. They highlighted traits that are generally seen in women with autism that may or may not be seen in men also, but they're pretty specific to women. So that if you are a woman with autism, you may, I don't want to say should relate to all of these, but you may relate to many of them. So if you're listening and you're waiting for a diagnosis, or you're just looking for insight into how you behave and react to things, I think these episodes might be really valuable for you. And what I do each episode is I basically read out each trait and just talk a little bit about how I relate to it, if I think I agree that I display that trait, or if it seems like I don't, or I'm not sure. So let's get started on this third set of female autistic traits. Again, these are behavioral traits. The first one is uses control to manage stress, and then there's a colon, and then it says follows intense self-imposed rules despite having an otherwise unconventional personality. And the answer is yes, I absolutely agree with everything that was just said in that statement. I definitely use control to manage my stress, which I think these traits are stated without trying to seem positive or negative. I don't think Dr. Price is trying to say this is a positive aspect, this is a negative aspect. But to me, it comes across like they're trying to say, or this statement is trying to say, that you use control to manage stress, and maybe that's not a good thing. Using control to manage stress may not be good because you can't always have control. And I definitely use that to not put myself in situations that I know will cause me stress. The problem being is that you can't control everything. You never can, you never will. I do spend a lot of time in my house, and there's a reason for that. It feels safe, it feels comfortable, I can control the environment. And one of my biggest stressors, honestly, and it's probably come up in these episodes prior, is when I have visitors to my house. This could be family, this could be friends, it could be family who knows me really well and has been in my space and area and house a lot. And so it's not about, oh, is it clean and my mom or mother-in-law is going to see it or something. It's really about just anyone coming into my space is a stressor, and so I try to prevent that. I don't like work people in my house, like plumbers, electricians. It just disturbs everything. And I think that has been a problem because I can only control so much, and when I get out into the world, or even in my own home, I think I've told this story a little bit in the past. I had a plumber in my home who ended up screaming at me. I will give a little bit more context to that. He said he was good with dogs. Turns out he wasn't good with dogs, and he kicked one of my dogs away, and she nipped him in the butt. And I'm not saying that it's right that she did that. It's wrong. She shouldn't have done that. She's dominant. She wasn't biting him. She was kind of biting, trying to control him. And he ended up flipping out, screaming at me, threatening me. It was really traumatic, and it set off my PTSD symptoms, and I had a PTSD episode directly after that happened. And that's something that I can control in a way. I had actually kept the dogs away from him for about 2 hours, and then he needed to go outside where the dogs were for like a minute to check something. And it was going to be an ordeal to bring them in, put him in the door, have him come the other way, da-da-da-da. And he kept saying, it's fine, and I let him convince me that it was fine, even though I knew that I didn't want to put this particular dog that nipped him in this situation, because I knew she would struggle with being around someone who she didn't know, particularly a man. He was holding a huge piece of equipment at the time, and she doesn't like that. It scares her. And so I was trying to control that situation to prevent the stress, and then decided, I'll just let it go, and completely misinterpreted that situation. I thought that I'm over-controlling this, even though I kind of knew. I knew I shouldn't. I knew that she shouldn't be around this guy, especially after holding her back for 2 hours. She was confused. Her mom had been alone with this scary guy for 2 hours, and she was worried about that. And I didn't know the guy, and he's telling me that he can handle this, that, and the other, and he couldn't, clearly, because he shouldn't have kicked my dog, and she shouldn't have done what she did. So I was trying to hyper-control this situation, and in the end, there are unknowns or decisions and judgments that you will make that will lead you into a space where you cannot control the situation. And I haven't honestly really learned to mitigate my stress response when I'm not in control. I find it very difficult to roll with the punches in real life. I do it really well at work. I'm not sure why that is. It might be because I'm so heavily masked and it's so important to me that I keep my job, and I know that for life, that you need to keep your job. And so I push stress down at work and kind of try to create a life outside work that doesn't feed into stress at work or increase that stress. But I really have struggled to just encounter stress on a day-to-day basis, and I do use heavy control to stop encountering stress. And the second part, which says follows intense self-imposed rules, despite having an otherwise unconventional personality. Absolutely, I have quite an unconventional personality. People will comment on it in a fun way, like, oh, you're so cool, you're so eclectic, you're so this, you're so that. And I do follow these rules that I say, no, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to deviate from that, because if I do, this might happen. And, I don't know, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, that because I'm so tightly wound and haven't tried to deal with stress outside of control, that if I do, it is going to go badly. And yeah, I just wish I could operate with less control, and a lot of people see it as maybe I don't trust them or I don't believe in them. And it's really not that. It's a self-preservation, self-protection thing of controlling my own space and my own needs so that I don't have to encounter stress, because stress can send me really just over the edge, let's be honest. All right, the second one is usually happiest at home or in a familiar, predictable environment. I absolutely agree with that. It plays a little bit differently with me because I have ADHD and autism. I think my autism is very much sensory protective. It's not seeking. I don't want to be exposed to bright lights, large sounds, huge spaces. I don't like big empty spaces, really. I hate bathrooms that are too big. Like when you go into a bathroom, like a toilet stall, and you're like exposed, you're vulnerable, your pants are down, and the space is just big. I really don't like that. And I really enjoy just being at home in the place that I know that is safe. I could spend weeks at home and not leave the house, ordering food online, just watching movies, hanging out with my dogs. But my ADHD side is sensory seeking. I like new things, experiencing new things, going to places I've never been to before. That being said, those places are usually places that I've been to in the realm of their area. And what I mean by that was a bit of word salad, sorry. What I mean by that is I love art museums and art galleries. They are a huge passion of mine. I find them to be gorgeously enjoyable. They're usually dim. It's kind of like a library. No one's talking very loudly, and you're left alone. You can just wander in there and you're left alone. So if I'm going to a new art museum or gallery, usually that is actually a safe experience for me. I know what to expect. The experience is pretty standardized now around the world. You know when you walk in what to expect. Get your ticket, go here, da-da-da-da. But if it's something I've never done before, or something I don't usually do, so this could be something like a theme park. I don't go to theme parks very often because I don't like roller coasters. They are terrifying to me. I've never been on a roller coaster that goes upside down or drops you. I've been on a couple of log flumes. I've been on a couple of rides that just kind of go, like up and down hills and spin around. But I haven't been on a real roller coaster. And so I find theme parks quite sensory overload, scary, not enjoyable. I'm just on edge the entire time. So it's difficult for me because, my husband might be like, okay, well, you want to be home right now, but then you'll go out and seek this thing that you've never done before. For example, we went to Topgolf 2 weeks ago. I suggested it. We're trying to get into less eating out and more doing stuff out because it costs so much to eat out. We might as well just go do stuff and experience something outside. But I'm terrified of new things. So there's these things, like escape rooms and places where you can climb walls and jump in bouncy, what are they called? Trampolines. And so I suggested Topgolf because it had just opened by us and it was pretty close by. And you could tell my husband was like, oh, you want to do that? You don't play golf. This sounds like something you wouldn't enjoy. And then he said, once I'd gotten there, he said, wow, you just stepped up to the plate and just started hitting balls. And it was really fun, and I love doing something new, but yeah, my husband didn't even know if I was going to enjoy that and was actually surprised that I suggested it and then did it. So yeah, totally agree with that aspect. The third one seems youthful for their age in looks, dress, behavior, or interests. Now that's a funny one because I agree with that. I dress, I'm in my late 30s, don't have kids, and I dress kind of in sneakers, sweatshirts, funky t-shirts. I'm pretty young seeming, I would say. But my demeanor is not that way, if you don't know me. Oftentimes at jobs, I am very much seen as older. Even if I'm the same age as the people I'm working with, they will assume I'm about 5 to 10 years older because I'm so mature and I'm so stoic. I don't really know how to act when people are, what I would say, going against the social rules. So for me at work, the social rules are you don't act out, you don't scream, shout, laugh loudly, you don't throw things around, you don't do silly things, you just don't act that way. But people in their 20s, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, and still now, will act in a certain way, and because I don't join in, assume that I am a lot older than I am when I'm not. But if you get to know me, I'm actually quite silly. I'm, like I said, dress very young. Often people will think I'm a lot younger than I am when they look at me, but my behavior comes off as a lot older than I am. That may also be from the fact that I'm an only child. Any only children out there? You only interact you interact mostly as an only child with adults. You don't have this playtime with your siblings. I didn't have cousins really hanging around. So I got very used to being very poised and just talking to adults, and that it was conversation. It wasn't like, let's do something really silly. And I've seen that with my husband, who has 2 siblings, and his parents both have like 4 or 5 siblings, that they are very different when they're relating to their siblings. And so that's a double-edged sword for me. Yes, seem that way in appearance, in physical appearance, do not always seem that way in representation of my personality, that I'm younger. The fourth aspect is prone to excessive exercise, calorie restriction, or other eating disordered behaviors. Yes, 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 and yes. I cycle through, especially when I was younger, in my teens and 20s, cycle through various different disordered eating things, experiences, whatever. I can get absolutely obsessed with working out, which I wish that would kick in a little bit right now, because I really do need to work out a little bit more. And I get obsessed with it, which it's interesting that this is coming up in autistic traits, because I always thought that this kind of hyper-focus on working out was to do with ADHD. It helps get out a lot of my hyperactivity, and once I get on a routine of doing it, it can last for probably around up to 3 months, where I'm just hyper-focused on working out. I'll work out once to twice a day and really lean into it. I also get into weird food habits, not eating too much. When I was in my teen years, I remember ordering, God knows what it was, to be honest, but like diet pills off of eBay. Literally ordered diet pills off of eBay. I don't even know what were in these things. Started taking them, felt bad about it because I knew I didn't know what was in them, ended up throwing them in the trash. I used to eat half a cucumber for lunch sometimes, which is mostly water. Just ridiculous. And then if you listen to some of my other episodes, I did a food episode, I think it's called Food for Thought, don't quote me on that. But I talk about binging, where I would just get crazy in the binging, just really couldn't stop eating, or it would just trigger something. I'd eat it, dopamine, and just eat and eat and eat. So that's really interesting to me that they brought that up as an autistic trait. I wonder if that might be to do with control. That you feel like you need to control your calories, your eating, your exercise. You might also have disordered behaviors because you have sensory issues with food. I definitely have in the past, where you just can't eat something. The smell, the flavor, the texture, everything about it. Definitely as a child, I had my safe foods. I was very, what they call a picky eater. So would only eat rice, would only eat pasta, would only eat certain dishes that people had made. I would know immediately if my mom had switched brands. So if I liked Kellogg's Rice Krispies or something, and she decided to get something else because it was cheaper, I would immediately say, this is not the same, I don't like it, you've freaked me out. So yes, I agree with that one, but interesting that came up for the autistic one, because I've always thought of that as more of an ADHD vibe. The fifth aspect is neglects physical health until it becomes impossible to ignore. That's an interesting one, and it's a big statement. Physical health. I guess that could mean a lot of different things. It could mean that you're injured and you neglect it. It could mean, I guess, you don't brush your teeth, you don't wash your face, you don't take showers very often. Could mean maybe you've gained some weight that is not, I have a bad knee. And actually when I gain weight, my bad knee starts to ache. And when I lose weight, it doesn't ache. And so I know that I have to keep my weight down to manage my knee issue, which is going to get worse as I get older. But that's a really interesting one, because again, I always kind of put that with ADHD as well, that you just forget. You neglect your physical health because you forget. You forget to take a shower, or sensorily, you don't enjoy it. I love showers though, so that's fine with me. You forget to brush your teeth. or sensorily you don't like brushing your teeth. In general, I would say no. I tend to go to the doctor when I need to, mostly because I have so much health anxiety that I would throw myself off a cliff just thinking about the fact that I probably have cancer, but really I just had heartburn or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm yes and no on that one. And the final behavioral aspect is self-soothes by constantly fidgeting, listening to repetitive music, twirling hair, picking at skin or cuticles, etc. This is several of those things, I'm like, yes, yes, and yes. Constantly fidgeting, I'm not as fidgety as some other neurodivergent people that I know and have worked with, but I'm not good at sitting still in a chair for a long time. I tend to start rocking. If the chair spins, I'm going to start spinning. I have a desk at work that goes up and down, so it can be a standing desk, and I stand almost all the time to prevent that, and I really enjoy it. It helps me focus. The listening to repetitive music, yes. I could listen to the same song if it's triggering this dopamine thing in me that I'm really enjoying. I could listen to it for hours. I remember in high school drawing a portrait over days for hours, and I just had on my CD Walkman the Cry Me a River song by Justin Timberlake over and over and over again. I remember also doing that with the Dawson's Creek theme tune, the I Don't Want to Wait song. Oh my gosh. Over and over and over again. And I still do it now, and it drives some people absolutely doolally. To me, I'm like, but you love this song. Why wouldn't you want to listen to it? 50 million times. Why? What? Are you crazy? I'm not crazy. I mean, this is amazing, right? And it just, no one wants to listen to it. The new Doja Cat song, You're a Devil. If you don't know that song, she got to #1 with it. It's insanely catchy. And I've been on TikTok a lot recently, and it became the latest TikTok dance trend. One night, while my husband was playing video games, I scrolled. And because once you hit the algorithm, if you watch something a couple of times, it just starts feeding those videos to you. I honestly must have watched maybe 300 videos in a row of people dancing to this one part of the song, of the chorus, over and over again. I would just scroll and be like, listen to it again, listen to it again, listen to it again, go back to my favorite one I like, listen to it again. It's just so enjoyable for me. It brings me so much calmness, and it says here, self-soothes. It soothes me so much, just brings me such joy and calmness that I'm just not going to stop doing it, to be frank with you. The last thing that's said on it, which says picking at skin or cuticles, that's something I would like to stop, actually. I have been doing this since I can remember. It started with biting my fingernails, and when I was about, I don't know, early elementary school, so maybe 6, I ripped off half of a fingernail, down to the bloody part, ripped it off, and didn't really bother me too much, and people started telling me, I think my mom and teachers, I don't know, and saying, you can't keep doing that. So then I moved to the skin. I'm not, be like, I'm not biting my nails. I'm biting the skin. I'm not biting my nails. And moved on to skin and cuticles. I've been doing this consistently for at least 30 years at this point. When you have on a finger, you have 3 segments to it. You have the bottom part, the part above the knuckle, and then the part with the fingernail on it. That part with the fingernail on every one of my fingers is usually red and swollen. At least, if it's not completely bitten apart and bleeding and scabbed, to the point that I don't show my fingers to people. I will often band-aid them to go into work because I'm so embarrassed by it. I have, on my left front tooth is crooked, because if you bite your cuticles, anyone on here who knows who bites your nails, it pushes against your front teeth. and I've been doing it for so long that that tooth is now crooked. It's weakened as well. I bit down accidentally on a fork a few years ago, and it chipped that tooth, which the dentist said it was probably weakened from chewing on it. And actually that chip has gotten worse over years after that because I keep chewing on it. It's something I've been temporarily able to, when I'm feeling good and not stressed out, it subsides a little bit or is not as bad. And then if my fingers are all bleeding and scabbed, I'm super stressed out at work or at home. Here's something I do want to tell you, though. I saw this recently on a neurodiversity board on Reddit or ADHD board or something. You can, which I'm planning to do, you can go to a dermatologist and talk to them about this issue. And they'll give you steroid cream for it. They'll give you gloves to wear at nighttime. And you really, I'm guessing, have to be really committed to not doing it. But they can help your skin heal. So if you're looking at your skin going, God, this is awful, it's red, bloody, damaged, go to a dermatologist and they can really help you. And it really is important because I'll tell you this, since I moved back to Florida, I'm actually worried about having these parts of my skin exposed to the sun. When I was getting my nails done very frequently when I was a professional dancer, I got the ones done, the gel ones. And they have to go under a curing lamp, so it's like a UV lamp, an intense UV lamp, and it hardens the gel. And when I put my fingers under there, it burned the top segment of my finger, where the skin is that I chew and eat all the time. And I was saying, ooh, that's burning. And the nail tech was like, it's burning, but I've never heard of this before. So this skin is damaged. It's damaged to the point that I don't know, my health anxiety is going down a route that's saying, I'm going to get cancer of the fingers, I'm going to lose my hand. But that may or may not happen, but it is an issue. It's bad for your skin. It's, bad for your oral care. It's not good for you, even though it's self-soothing. And I've tried to switch to fidget toys, like fidget spinners, and I found one that I really like, but I've got to take it everywhere with me all the frickin' time. And what frustrated me about it is that instead of being able to, cure this, and I don't mean my ADHD or autism, but stop me from picking at my skin, is that it just had to be replaced with something else that's equally as frantic and self-soothing. So I'll be spinning this thing frantically at work, and if I don't do that, I'm chewing my fingers. And it was just frustrating to know that that was the solution. The solution was just replace it with something that's not as damaging, which I guess is a positive. It just upset me that I was like, there's no way out of this. There's, no way to get away from it. That being said, I am going to go to a dermatologist, like I said, because what does happen for me is when I do back off some of my fingers and they get healed a little bit, is that I tend to back off more. Like hangnails, I need my fingers to be smooth. So I do this thing where I kind of rub them over my lips, and if I feel anything rough, I just start to go to town on it, chewing on it. But if it's smooth, it's like, okay, it's smooth, I'm good. And so I think when they do heal up a bit, it kind of stops me from doing the chewing so much. And that's just something that I've got to get a handle on because I'm hurting on my, I have open sores on my hands all the time. And that is actually not healthy. You shouldn't be going into a pool, a hot tub, or the ocean, a lake, any body of water if you have open wounds anywhere on your body. Infections can happen. It's, I had an infection in my thumb when I was about 18 when I worked in retail, and I had an open wound on my thumb, was managing cash, which is notoriously disgustingly dirty, got a really serious infection that went into my blood. And the doctor, once I went to the doctor, was like, you are a hop, skip, and away from having a blood infection, which can be very serious and difficult to fight. So I'm not trying to be alarmist, but there's lots of different reasons to try to stop biting your fingers. Even though it is so comforting to me, I could chew a finger for about an hour, and it it's like I focus on it and everything else slips away. But I've got to work on that because I really don't want to keep doing that. So those are all the female behavioral autistic traits that were highlighted in Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price. Next week, I'm going to do episode 4 of this mini-series, and it's going to be the social aspects. And if you haven't listened to the other episodes, please do. I go over the psychological and emotional female autistic traits, and I think it's just really valuable to try to learn more about yourself and see if you relate, because when you relate to someone else, you feel less alone, and that's honestly how I'm feeling sharing this with you. If you're liking what you're listening to, and I hope you are, please just smash a 5-star review wherever you're listening. I have some good reviews, but I know from my analytics that there's a lot more people out there listening that haven't reviewed the podcast. And if you're coming back every week for this content, I know you're loving it. So if you're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, Spotify, smash that 5-star. If you want to leave a longer review on Apple, I'd love to read it. It's super heartwarming when I do. Follow me on social media. You can find me almost anywhere on My Brain is a Wonderland. And I will catch you again next time on My Brain is a Wonderland Season 2.